Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Mike Elko, the Texas A&M Aggies, gaining some serious momentum in the transfer portal. We got three commitments that we have to talk about: Jaden Hill, Derrick, Jabari Barber. But if you're a Texas A&M fan, we talked about this a little bit yesterday. Mike Elko takes the job, a very calculated approach. I mean, going through his evaluations, taking a look at who's available in the transfer portal, what his roster has, and now he's absolutely getting to work, landing these commitments. The tweets just keep coming from Mike Elko signifying that there's commitments. Want to get into these three commitments, give you guys some of my takes on the new additions for Texas A&M. Before we get into it, just want to say thank you to you guys. And this has been a program that's truly been a blast for me to cover all of these commitments. The amount of support you guys have shown truly has been amazing. Cannot thank you guys enough. If y'all do enjoy the content, you appreciate the updates, consider subscribing to the channel. Again, all the support you guys have shown the boys really does mean a lot. And without further ado, let's get into it. And we'll start with the most recent one, and that is 6-year senior Jaden Hill coming over from the Florida Gators. And the first thing you want to talk about with Jaden Hill is a guy that has played a ton of football during his career at the SEC level. And we had this conversation yesterday. You watched that Texas A&M bowl game against Oklahoma State. The secondary had to make improvements, and Mike Elko has been extremely busy doing so. But for Texas A&M fans, what you're most excited about is Mike Elko has a very proven track record with evaluating defensive backs in the transfer portal, getting them into this program, and getting the best out of these guys. He did a phenomenal job at Duke during his 2 years, grabbing defensive backs from the portal and turning them into all-conference performers. For a guy like Jaden Hill, started all 12 games in 2023 for the Florida Gators, primarily playing at that slot role. And what you're getting with Jaden Hill is, one, a guy that is physically mature from a body standpoint. He spends a lot of time playing in that tackle box, can make tackles, can be physical in the run game, but also allows you to have that speed from the slot to work against some of these slot receivers that you see in the SEC. And I think a really important conversation that not a ton of people have is the importance of that slot, that nickelback position in a modern day defense. I mean, you see a lot of teams try to spread you out with a lot of speed on the football field. Having the ability to have a slot corner, a nickelback that can match that speed and coverage ability, but also be a force in the run game, come up and make plays at or behind the line of scrimmage is huge. And a guy like Jaden Hill, who has done it for a very long time at the Florida Gators, certainly do that. And you look back to the 2022 year, played primarily on the outside. So you're getting a lot of experience from a guy that's played nickel, that's played the boundary cornerback. A really nice get for Texas A&M that continues to add depth, to add competition and talent to that cornerback and secondary room for Texas A&M. The next guy I want to talk about, and this one kind of flew under the radar, right? Derrick coming over from Troy. And the first thing you want to talk about with a guy like Derrick, a ton of experience coming from Troy. He's a guy that's played over 1,700 snaps at that tackle position. And you take a look at some other schools that made a run at Derrick, Ohio State being one of them. And for Texas A&M to go toe-to-toe with Ohio State for a transfer portal offensive tackle that a lot of Power 5 programs felt good about, and landing him is massive. And I think the best thing you like with Derrick is, one, a very good pass blocking offensive tackle that can also kick inside and play guard at a high level. And we've had this conversation with Texas A&M. You want to continue to build that depth and talent on the offensive line. You never really saw that with Jimbo Fisher, right? Steve Addazio was largely just a disaster hire. And I think that led to a lot of problems Texas A&M went through during the Jimbo Fisher era, especially at the end. You just never saw dominant offensive line play for Texas A&M. One thing that you kind of feel confident will change with Mike Elko is to play along the line of scrimmage. When Mike Elko took over that Duke team, that team was kind of their MO, their identity of the offensive side of the football was having a good offensive line, having a strong run game. Mike Elko looking to replicate that at Texas A&M, a guy in Derrick, who again in 2023 faced over 520 pass blocking opportunities, gave up 19 pressures, is an experienced guy that gives you position versatility on the offensive line. And no doubt in my mind, as a guy that's going into his 5th year of college football, a guy that a lot of Power 5 programs wanted out of the transfer portal, is coming into that offensive line and providing high quality competition and depth to this group. And again, at the cornerback spot and secondary spot and at the offensive line, those are positions that you need to have depth. And I think Texas A&M is doing a phenomenal job building depth at those positions. Now, the last player I want to talk about, and a guy that is probably my favorite commitment out of these three that we're talking about, late last Friday night, Jabari Barber coming over from Troy as well. And this is a guy that I'm not going to go as far as say he reminds me of Aeneas Smith, but a guy that works out of that slot at an extremely high level. And at the end of the day, for a guy like Jabari Barber, you just have to trust the production that he had at Troy. Over 76 catches for 985 yards, 416 of those yards came after the catch. I think what you're getting with the guy like Jabari Barber is two things. One, an extremely quarterback-friendly wide receiver, kind of like what Smith did for Texas A&M. When you have a quarterback like Connor Wigman, you want to make his life easy. And the best way you can make his life easy in the passing attack is having a slot cornerback that can create separation early in his route trees and work for his quarterback after the catch. Jabari Barber on his 985 yards receiving, over 400 of them came after the catch. This is a guy that makes people miss. And another thing that I absolutely love about him after watching a little bit of his games, he's kind of was the go-to guy in that Troy offense when it was third down, right? He had 44 first down catches at Troy in 2023. When you have those situations, those money downs where you need to play good in order to win football games, those 3rd and 6s to extend drives, do you have that wide receiver that's going to create separation, get open, present himself to the quarterback, and come up with a catch to extend the drive? I think Jabari Barber could be that guy for Texas A&M. And again, one other thing that I want to add, only 6 drops on 115 targets, very sure-handed wide receiver that, again, is a playmaker after the catch. And you take a look at Texas A&M and what they're doing, 15 transfer portal commitments, and it sounds like Texas A&M is not even close to being done. And obviously, Texas A&M had a lot of guys leave this program through the transfer portal. Mike Elko being extremely aggressive in revamping and retooling this roster from a starter standpoint, but also from a depth standpoint. And if you're looking at this list, the position group that stands out to me, and I can't say I'm nearly surprised because you know Mike Elko was going to come in and fix this position, was that secondary room. Right, going out and getting a guy like Donovan Sanders and Will Lee, who I think can be absolute lockdown boundary cornerbacks. Going grabbing a guy in Jaden Hill, who I think very well going into a 6-year college football, all of those years being in the SEC, could be a very, very good slot receiver or slot corner for Texas A&M, playing that nickel role, working on the offensive line, getting some weapons in this offense. You're Texas A&M. You're extremely excited about the proven talent that you're getting in the transfer portal combined with the Mike Elko player development. I think Texas A&M is doing a phenomenal job. Now, it sounds like we're going to have a lot more commitments over the next couple of days. We'll continue to keep you guys updated. A few major names that we're waiting to see maybe fall to Texas A&M. Very exciting last couple of days. Continue to keep you guys updated. Texas A&M fans, appreciate you guys rocking with the boys again. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.